Hi, everybody. This is a full house. I don't know where all the people are. I am Malvika. Sharan, thank you so much for the introduction. I want to start with a very optimistic picture of what research life cycle looks like. So imagine you have an idea. Of course, you go and design your project, you collect data, you process data, you conduct your study, everything goes well, you publish everything, and you archive, obviously, everything because you care about reusability and people will build on your work. Very simplistic, of course, no problem happens ever in your research. Who are involved? Researchers, probably a supervisor, a PI, a data scientist, maybe research engineer. Let's give credit to peer reviewers and not so much to publishers in this case. Data managers and project managers, right? Probably some people are missing in this list and likely you're thinking about them. So let's step back a little bit because we're in the Open Science Conference. We're thinking about integrating open science as well as reproducibility in the research from the start. So open science is an umbrella term for a lot of practices that allows people to integrate best practices for ensuring equity, inclusion, accessibility, and social benefit to the world. So it's not just about adding a license of open source or sharing your code, but also making sure that you're taking care of diversity of knowledge, who is involved, am I educating people, am I actually doing everything right in terms of allowing people to look at my research? But then also worrying about reproducibility. It's not just enough to publish everything, but also important to make sure that people are able to reproduce and therefore reuse your work. So here's again a simple picture of what reproducibility might look like, and it's a computational reproducibility, which means that if you have same data and same code or analysis process, when you apply them, you would always have the same result. Now, software keeps evolving and your packages get outdated. So am I recording for that? Is it just enough to say that here's my code, here's my data? I might need to actually provide configuration for my environment. And there's a lot more, actually. So I'm not going to go in detail, but I want to come back to this now and say, consider that you want to apply open science and reproducibility from the very beginning of your research and reimagine this research lifecycle. So you have an idea, you want to communicate that with people, you want to invite people to become your collaborator and stakeholders in the research and get involved in the planning phase. They design it with you, they identify different problems from their own perspective. They get involved in data collection. So it's not just about generating data, but also data review. What has been published? What have they been used for? Is it useful for me? Can I actually involve those people who published this? Is this project open enough for that? And then data processing, which is, again, a lot of decisions around what statistics I'm going to use, what environment I'm going to use, what infrastructure should be needed. Would that infrastructure be actually reproducible for people with low resource setting? So a lot of those considerations. Then conducting your study and analysis and also knowing that you're going to have a lot of challenges and problems and you're going to come back to every step every now and then. So it's an iterative process. Problem happens in research all the time. And then publishing your paper, but not just paper, but your data, your software, your research workflow, your educational material, talks and presentation you've given, maybe writing a blog or podcast or whatever else. So different components of your research. And preserving your data. Then also considering that you are ethical, that your work environment is good, that you've been fair to the people who are working with you, that you've been transparent about everything that you did. And making sure that these work can be reused by anybody with any amount of resource that they have. There's a lot of consideration in there. It's a socio-technical infrastructure and not just technical infrastructure, which is why it's important to consider this complex research life cycle beyond what's written in there. So what it actually highlights is that there is a huge emphasis on interdisciplinarity at this stage. There's the evolving research and data landscape. AI, data, statistics, and mathematics have integrated in literally all sectors and all walks of our life. And it's very important to consider that we have cared for interdisciplinarity from the very beginning, which also means that we actually involve specialists who are able to become the glue between different sectors, that they can communicate what I mean to the different experts who have different vocabulary. We all use very different language. Risk may mean different things. Curiosity may mean different things. The outputs that we consider mean different things. Who is enabling that collaboration? Thinking about widening participation, of course, underrepresented communities, marginalized communities, people with disability, people who look different, who are immigrants. We need to involve them. They are part of our society. Their consideration matters. So thinking about widening participation from that point of view, but also thinking about how the skill landscape is evolving. Are we able to keep up? Are we able to upskill everybody? Commitment to equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, actually expanding our vocabulary for that. Accessibility is a lot of different things. It is technical accessibility, physical accessibility, geographical accessibility. So we need to commit to that, especially as people who are working in open science. Valuing people and skills rather than looking for problems that exist. We look for what do they have, how can that be integrated in research. Building a better research culture, of course, traditional research culture doesn't work for modern data science. We need to recognize that and continue to reimagine that, not just following through what we've done in the past. And building pathways for leadership. So what is hidden behind leadership is power and privilege. Sharing that power and privilege with as many people as possible, especially when they are going to be impacted by the output of our work. So across the sector, this looks very, very different. Open reproducibility or best practices mean different things to different people, and it is never stagnant. It has to keep on evolving based on what is needed right now. So I'm quoting here National Data Strategy, which was published in 2020, which actually points out that there is no definition for data skills. We cannot all agree on data skills definitions. We can define descriptors, but people will hire different people, call them whatever they want, and I think the government is worried. I am not so much worried because I think that's actually quite useful. Here's an overwhelming slide. I want to apologize, but I also want to overwhelm you because this is the list of different things that I think are important to conduct research. All these people are part of research in order to build better quality output, in order to help us succeed together. So we might always think about this: project scoping, funding, management, peer review, engineering, and so on. Then we also tend to separate people in the business and say, oh, the partnership team is going to help us do this stakeholder engagement. And collaborative workflow, let's see, what works, what doesn't work. If it is a problem, then we'll deal with it. Policy compliance, we also don't tend to talk with policymakers so much. We just consider them very difficult because, oh, they have a policy. They won't change it. They won't listen to me. Ethical consideration, I wish I was taught early on that ethics is just right action rather than the jargon. So I think there are a lot of different things that we consider secondary and we outsource it, and we don't need to because we need to involve them in the research infrastructure. And then the last one, which I already emphasized on, I can't emphasize enough, equitable and inclusive team. Maintenance, open source problem, huge work that needs to be recognized. Training and upskilling work, this shouldn't be a part-time job of people. Everybody should upskill and train their community. Community management, hard work, because I lead a team of community managers. I know how hard that is. Event facilitation, I don't think everybody can do that, so congratulations to the conference organizer for putting this together. We've already heard about documentation a lot, how important this is to improve transparency. So what I want to actually do is that recognize all these skills, and I'm emphasizing a lot more on those hidden roles that are not often rewarded or incentivized. How can we do that? It cannot be just done on a volunteer basis. It's not enough for one person to go to other and say, I value. That's important, but what we want is systemic change. What we want is these ideas to be integrated in policy so they make difference at the institution level. So now I'm coming back to the actual talk. I wanted to talk about research infrastructure role. The background that I provided is really to define this, that there are a lot of research roles. These are not confined to researchers, research engineers, and data scientists, but it includes different kinds of research roles, which we will call research infrastructure role. These are specialized skill, expertise, and service, which are important and required for effectively carrying out high-quality research. These are not support staff, as previously seen. These roles are important. These people are researchers because they're curious, they're involved, they are really, really important for us to do the right work. So now I want to actually also acknowledge the open source work. The open source role is to make sure that we're building better tool, better research, better outcome that is useful for everyone. Open source for a very, very long time have been built on the volunteer free labor, and that's not sustainable. That's not fair on people who are given with this whole big task of maintaining and not being rewarded or incentivized or be visible. It's seen as like, oh, you are stepping into this world of technology, but you're going to do this low-level job, and I'm not going to pay you for that. And I think that's very toxic. I think we need to provide better role for these people so they can take on the leadership role. Maintenance is a hard job, but a lot of people love it. So why don't we actually give them the role that recognizes that leadership? But also, I'm not trying to categorize different roles into different boxes. Sometimes, these categories are important to empower people to recognize that I belong to that particular research role. But this is also to allow people to identify who they reach out to, where they can go. This is a bit more fluid in terms of that you can take on multiple roles. You can be part of multiple teams. You can actually be curious about different technology and skills and tools and learn about them. So our skills are not fixed. You can be good at a lot of things. You can do anything. That's a quote by Tanya Riley, who talks about glue work in research. So I'm taking an example from research software engineering. 10 years ago, the research software engineering term was coined at Software Sustainability Institute conference called Collaboration Workshop. In 2012, they wrote a paper about how it's important to recognize this important role of software engineer. And after 10 years, it has actually become a very, very recognized role. People love that job. People want to apply for that job. It's seen as a very prestigious work. And I want to learn from that. It was a very slow change, but it was incremental. And I hope that next time we propose a new role, we don't take 10 years to recognize them. That we immediately say, oh yeah, of course we understand that role evolve and they change, and that's okay to recognize it. So we are talking about diversifying research roles through research infrastructure. There are many, many work that happens throughout the research process. I have just labeled some of them. You can have public engagement, trainers, mentors. You have research applications, so product management, community manager. There are people who are interested in impact evaluation, data stewards, data wranglers, designers, ethnographers, policymaker, ethicist, librarian. I'm sure you're thinking about a role that that is not there, and I want them to be there. So there are a lot of ways that we can diversify these kind of research roles, and it's very, very important to recognize them. These are specialized roles that not everybody has, and it's a superpower for them to be able to be horizontal, to be available for different kind of research across different sectors while bringing these specialized skill with them. So am I talking about this from, I am passionate about this? Yes, but I also have done this. It's not impossible. I'm a senior researcher at the Alan Turing Institute. It's a National Institute for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. If you're interested in an Enigma machine, it's actually outside our office in British Library, so please come and see it. They lent it to us in 2019, and they forgot to pick it up. That's my perception, so take advantage. I'm part of Tools, Practices, and Systems. It's a horizontal program. We work across different sectors, but our program's role is to ensure that everything that we do builds on trustworthy systems, such as software research environment or virtual environment. Transparent reporting, that we are transparent about what we are doing at all stages of research and not just at the end. Inclusive interoperable design, because we work across different sectors. We want to understand how do they transfer from one sector to other. Thinking about ethical integrity in all the work that we do, respectful co-creation, and leadership in open research. And the diversifying research role really falls into this leadership in open research. So Here's a very, very simple way that I can look at a project. You have a project. You know that project has some resources available to them. You have immediate contributors, people who are building tools or technology, and there are some users who may be at the institute, may be involved, may not be involved. So I'm leading a team of community managers, and I see our role as the bridge builder. We build bridge between the resources and the contributor to make sure that whatever they're doing is being done with a lot of care. We are definitely advocating for lots of socio-technical infrastructure in our work. So we have Dr. Emma Karoon and Anne sitting here. They also have a table upstairs, so please do come and talk to them. So they sit across different projects. Each of my team members sit in different projects, but they also sit in my team, and the role is to de-silo the different projects that work in their own. We want them to share challenges from the very beginning, take each other's work, bring it back into their other projects that they may not be using it. So this is one of the ways we are trying to understand what it looks like to break down silos. I have a colleague, Ida Mehonic, who's building a separate team of research application managers. These are product manager equivalent at the institute, and I would see them as loop closer from the outside. They look at a project and see what's happening and imagine who might be interested in this project. They go to government, local council, industry, different people, and say, hey, this project is really, really cool. You might be interested in it. Is there a feature missing? Do you want to actually come and join us? Do you want to collaborate with us? Maybe invest in it so it's sustainable so we can bring it back to your sector. And they've done some really incredible work with environment and sustainability in the last year. We have a third group led by Bastian Grishake Zovaras, who's a senior researcher for the Participatory Citizen Science. A project he's leading is Art Spaces. It's a community of artistic researchers for the artistic researchers. He's also a co-director for Open Humans Platform and Transbiome Project. And he wants to imagine, can we involve citizens in all the projects from the very beginning? So there are a lot more teams that we are planning that could be around trustworthy infrastructure, computational reproducibility, humanities, and so on. So we have the Alan Turing Institute. We are tools, practices, and system. We have projects that's happening inside, and we take on the role to communicate them outside as soon as possible. If the research is ongoing, we want researchers to actually talk about it as soon as possible. So we built this project called the Turing Way. The Turing Way is a community-led handbook for data science best practices. We involved a diverse community of international researchers in making research reproducible, ethical, collaborative, and inclusive for everyone. So it's a book. You can browse the book. We have about 260 chapters written by 400 plus people on all kinds of work, such as project design, collaboration, communication, ethics, community, and so on. We are a big community, and I think that's that's the superpower. I think people are collaborating across multiple topics, and book may happen or may not happen, but this community is what is actually trying to change the culture. It's a global collaboration, and our goal is to change the culture. So it had started as a book on reproducibility, as a lightly opinionated guide, one-stop shop for all the people to know what their responsibility for reproducibility is. We started to write a lot of chapters on reproducibility, but immediately started to see a trend. People were only talking about technology, but we wanted a lot more than technology. Therefore, the project expanded into 5 more guides, which was talking about project design, communication, collaboration, and ethical research, as well as recording everything that we do in community building. So if someone else wants to build this, they can. We have recently some of our team members who started this chapter on research infrastructure role, which is trying to catalog different kind of professional roles that exist. Some of them are obviously missing, and if you see that your role is missing, please do come and tell us. We would love to really advocate for that role. So I already said that. I think it's appropriate to mention we got an Open UK award on belonging because we really have this over 400 people who are leaders in their own communities, who are trying to work together to represent their own community. So we don't build global practices based on my personal experience in the UK, but really involve people from all around the world. We're also collaborating very closely with different organizations, and our project has been extended or replicated by several projects at the Institute, but also externally, including in the government and citizen spaces. Everything is on Zenodo. All the images that I'm showing is on Zenodo, and the stats is for that. A lot of people have used it, including in policies. My slides are also on Zenodo. You will see a DOI in all my slides, so please do reuse them. Some of the notable activities of the Turing Way has been that I sit as a panelist for the NASA TOPS. You might have heard of the Year of Open Science that NASA TOPS launched. They even influenced the White House to launch it for the entire country, which is really amazing. The Turing Way is used by them as one of their primary resources. We have also been cited in several reports, government policy, training resources, and so on. So what is next, right? Like we talked about that we need the research infrastructure role and that we are writing about it, but we really want to do it systematically. So we're building a Turing Way Practitioners Hub where we want to start by piloting our Practitioners Hub with UK organization. We want to work with government, industry, and public sector in identifying what best practices do they apply, how does it work in their own sector, and how they can exchange knowledge with each other, as well as advocate for the roles that we have piloted at the Turing Institute more broadly across those collaborators. And Emma also received a Turing Skills Policy Award, which will allow us to engage with the policy ecosystem. We haven't done that directly, and these two are our immediate effort to engage directly with institutions and policy. Next month at this venue, we have AI UK conference, and we would also hold some dialogue, panels, and talks, which will touch on the research infrastructure roles. So I want to thank all the people at the Turing Way who have inspired a lot of work, and they continue to work. And all the things that I talk about, I don't think I could take the full credit for without having this conversation over the past few years with all my colleagues. So thanks to them for being part of open source and being part of the Turing Way. I think what is underneath all of these is our desire to acknowledge all kinds of work. In the Turing Way, we have implemented quite an intense policy for acknowledgement, but we continue to reimagine what that might look like. So anybody who has ever contributed to the Turing Way is listed as authors together. We recognize that volunteer work is not for everyone, mostly because we don't pay them, right? So a lot of people can't work for free. They don't have time. They have different responsibilities. So we want to recognize that it's not the quantity of work, but the quality of work that matters, and that collaboration is what we uphold the most. I'm going to skip this, but yeah, we have quite a lot of infrastructure that we are reusing from open source. So we also want to make sure that we are not reinventing the wheel. So all contributors bought Jupyter Notebook for Jupyter Books, our Netlify, GitHub. I don't know how many more we're using. So yeah, join us to have more conversation. Please collaborate with me on the ideas of research infrastructure role, but more generally, the research culture. We want to meet you where you are. We want to meet everybody in open science where they are. We understand that open science is not that easy. It's actually very difficult. There's a lot of things that people need to learn before they can start even contributing. So we want to make the barriers so less that entering into open science becomes easy for them via the Turing Way, that they can bring it back in their own community. There are various roles that they can take on. This is not a community that you need to be exclusively part of. It's a community that you step into in order to represent your own community and project. Please do try to meet Anne and Emma, really fantastic colleagues of mine who are at the 4th floor. They have some stickers if you like stickers, but they also would share a bit more about how you can get involved. A plug of Open Life Science, which is a training and mentoring program that I have co-founded with 3 of my colleagues. The program is 16-week-long training and mentoring where you can bring any project and apply open science practices more systematically. We hold cohort calls and expert consulting and different kinds of activities that allows you to build an accountable space where you can start understanding what open science looks like for you. And also, the Year of Open Science, it's not just for the US member, although I'm really jealous that government of US has decided that this is going to be a year of open science for everyone. I wish all the country can do that. So if you are based in the US, but also in general interested in open science, please connect with Dr. Shell Gentman, who would be able to share a bit more about the Year of Open Science with you and how you can or your organization can get involved. So I want to close here, and I want to end in this slide with a bit of, that was a long-winded, lots of information. So I want to remind us of what is the long-term goal. The long-term goal of research infrastructure role, or for us to reimagine anything, is to reimagine a better world where we want to live. It is about how can we value the talent pool and value the people when they help us expand our vocabulary for accessibility, inclusivity, equity, and society. Open science should allow us to become researchers without borders, where we collaborate to solve challenges and problems at hand, rather than wondering and worrying about what my worth is, which is often assessed by institutional decision to give me a title. It's not about that. It's not our fault. We all have skills, curiosity, and intention to build a better world and contribute to a better world. So it's the institution that needs to be fixed. And we have to fix it together. So let's get to work. Thank you so much.